Imagine a Formula One car that feels nervous at high speed, a rear end that never fully settles, a front end so sharp it almost feels like it wants to snap. For most drivers, that kind of car is a nightmare. Unpredictable, exhausting, terrifying. But for Max Verstappen, that's home. And here's the part nobody is ready for yet. The 2026 Formula One regulations are about to create more unstable cars than this sport has seen in over a decade. Which means while most of the grid is about to struggle, one driver may quietly feel right at home. Because Max Verstappen doesn't just tolerate instability, he feeds on it. Stay with me, because by the end of this video you'll understand why what scares most drivers is exactly what could make Max even more dangerous in 2026, and why some of his rivals are about to be brutally exposed. Let's start with an uncomfortable truth for the rest of the grid. Drivers are trained to seek stability. They want predictable braking, a planted rear axle, and a neutral balance that gives them confidence lap after lap. Max Verstappen was built differently. From karting to Formula 3 to Formula 1, his instincts developed around cars that move, slide, and rotate aggressively. His brain doesn't panic when the rear steps out, it calculates. Where other drivers react, Max anticipates, and this isn't opinion. Red Bull engineers, former drivers, and rival teams have repeatedly said the same thing in different words. Verstappen prefers a car that feels on edge. A car with a sharp front end and an unstable rear. A car that punishes hesitation but rewards commitment. That's why so many of his teammates, Gasly, Albon, even Perez, struggled to extract performance. They weren't slow. The car just lived in a window most drivers can't operate in consistently. Now here's where 2026 changes everything. The upcoming regulations will fundamentally alter how Formula One cars generate performance. Less reliance on downforce, smaller cars, reduced drag, and most importantly, a massive increase in electrical power contribution. The 2026 power units will deliver close to a 50-50 split between internal combustion and electrical energy. That sounds clean and efficient on paper, but on track, it creates chaos. Why? Because electrical deployment is non-linear. Power will arrive differently corner to corner. Torque delivery will be more abrupt. Energy harvesting will influence braking stability. And aero grip will fluctuate more than drivers are used to. Translation: cars that feel inconsistent, nervous, and difficult to trust, especially on corner entry and exit. For most drivers, that's a recipe for mistakes. For Max Verstappen, that's a playground. Think about how Max drives today. He's already one of the best on the grid at managing throttle application at the very edge of traction. His right foot isn't aggressive. It's surgical. He doesn't stamp on power, he layers it. Micro adjustments, millisecond timing, constant feedback between car and driver. That's exactly the skill set required when electrical torque spikes unpredictably, which is exactly what 2026 will introduce. Here's a quick mental reset. Ask yourself this: how many drivers can correct a slide before it fully begins? Not after, before. That's the difference. And that difference is where Max lives. Now, before we go deeper, quick pit stop. If you're still watching, congratulations, you're officially more committed than Ferrari strategists on a wet Sunday. Hit subscribe right now so you don't miss the chaos coming in 2026. Trust me, you'll want to be here when half the grid starts asking uncomfortable questions. Back to the danger zone. Another under-discussed aspect of unstable cars is braking. The 2026 power units will harvest more energy under braking, which means braking zones will feel different lap to lap depending on battery state. That introduces inconsistency. Lockups become more likely. Rear instability increases. For drivers who rely on fixed braking references, this is terrifying. Max Verstappen? He thrives on variable braking. He's one of the latest brakers in Formula One, not because he's reckless, but because he understands weight transfer at a deeper level. He trail brakes aggressively, rotates the car early, and uses rear instability to point the nose toward the apex. That style is perfect for a car that doesn't want to behave the same way every lap. And here's the part nobody wants to admit. Unstable cars punish mental weakness. Inconsistent grip creates doubt. Doubt leads to hesitation. Hesitation kills lap time. Max doesn't hesitate. He commits, adapts, and recalibrates instantly. That's why in changing conditions, rain, safety cars, tyre degradation, he consistently looks calmer than everyone else. Now imagine that environment. Every lap, every race, every weekend. That's 2026. Let's talk fear, because fear will play a huge role next season. Younger drivers raised on ultra-stable ground effect cars will suddenly be forced to relearn how to manage cars that move beneath them. Veterans who built careers on consistency may struggle with unpredictability, and engineers will be chasing stability that regulations simply won't allow. Max Verstappen won't chase stability, he'll exploit instability. This is why insiders already whisper that 2026 could reset the grid, but not equally. Some drivers will lose confidence, others will lose consistency. Max, he could gain freedom. Because when cars become difficult, the advantage shifts from machinery to instinct. And Max's instincts are elite. Here's a cliffhanger for you. What if the biggest advantage in 2026 isn't the engine, or the aero, or the battery, but the ability to accept that the car will never feel perfect? That's where Max separates himself. Mid-race adjustments are another hidden weapon. Verstappen doesn't wait for engineers to fix problems. He changes brake bias, diff settings, energy deployment modes on the fly. He treats the car like a living system, not a fixed tool. That adaptability becomes priceless when power delivery varies corner by corner. Exactly what hybrid heavy regulations create. Now let me ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly in the comments. Do you think drivers are over-reliant on stable cars today? Because 2026 might expose that dependence brutally. And while you're thinking about that, tap the like button. It helps more than a tow down Monza's main straight. The scary part for the rest of the grid? Verstappen is still improving. His emotional control has evolved. His aggression is more calculated. His race IQ sharper than ever. If unstable cars return, they won't meet a reckless Max. They'll meet a refined one. That's a dangerous combination. History tells us this sport cycles. Regulation resets create chaos. Chaos creates opportunity, and opportunity rewards drivers who can live on the edge without falling off it. That edge is where Max Verstappen has always been most comfortable. So when you hear people say 2026 is a reset, remember this. Resets don't erase skill. They amplify it. And if instability becomes the norm again, the driver who has spent his entire career mastering it may suddenly look unstoppable. So here's your final thought, and it's uncomfortable for Max's rivals. What if 2026 doesn't level the playing field, but tilts it? If you want to understand how the new power units could reshape wheel-to-wheel racing entirely, I've got a video waiting for you on screen right now. Watch that next, because this story is just getting started.